All right, well, thank you very much. Hope everyone had a good lunch, and I'm going to try and keep you awake after lunch. It's always difficult every year. This year it's complicated, of course, by the heat in this room. I tried to get us moved to the rooftop terrace, but they just said no. All right, so I'm going to talk about GDUFA II fees in as much detail as I can, but I'm going to start doing that by reference to GDUFA I fees. I'm going to move back and forth a little bit as I talk because that's how I like to do it. I got some feedback last year that I made people online seasick, so I'm going to try not to do it too much. So here we go. Okay, so what I want to do is first give an outline on what the fee structure is going to be like, comparing it to what it was like in GDUFA I, so what stays the same, and then highlight what's different so that I can draw your attention to it. And then talk a little bit about what we're doing internally and with industry's help to prepare for the go live on October 1. And I'll talk about some of the timelines for that as well. So here's where we end GDUFA I. We had a handful of fee types. If you were to have read the statute, you saw the target percentage. This gave you the total target revenue of $323 million for the end of GDUFA I, the 5th year of GDUFA I. Notice we had the end-to-pass fee type, the API facility, FDF facility, and DMF. I didn't put the backlog fee on here because that was only for year 1. So moving into GDUFA II, I'm going to walk you through this chart to draw your attention to things. And as another part of my strategy to keep you awake, I'm going to be asking you questions, and that's the interactive portion. So I will ask for feedback. Last year I had candy to give out as a reward, but I almost hit people last year, so I'm going to try and mitigate that lawsuit risk. All right, so here we go. So in GDUFA II, we're going to have the ANDA fee, which like in GDUFA I is going to be due upon submission of an ANDA. So what's different about this? Anybody? This is where you all interact. Thoughts? So there's no PAS fee, there's no supplement fee. So going into GDUFA II, you will not be paying fees for supplements. This is different from GDUFA I. Something else that's different, but is not really easily visible here, is that if you are to withdraw your fee, I'm sorry, you can't withdraw your fee, nice try. If you're to withdraw your application before it's been filed, you'll be eligible for 75% refund. This has typically been the case for those that have been RTR'd after having been, their scientific review has started. In the past, if you withdrew it before formal filing, you weren't able to get a refund. We realized as we were going through GDUFA I that this may have introduced some incentives that we didn't want. And so during the negotiations, this is what we worked out for GDUFA II. And then something else, which is relatively minor, is that state or federal entities who are submitting applications will be exempt from the fee going into GDUFA II. We didn't get a lot of traffic in that area, but that is something that we chose to do differently. So something else that's different in GDUFA II that wasn't in GDUFA I at all is what we're calling the program fee. Now, you've probably heard something about this in the trade press or at other conferences, but essentially if you are an ANDA holder and you have approved ANDAs, then you're going to be paying a fee based on the number of them that you and your affiliate hold. I'll be talking a lot more about this in depth a little bit later, but it's about 35% of the total target revenue. So if you notice, the total proportion of the target revenue that's borne by ANDA holders, those who are submitting new applications or those who have approved applications, is 68% of the total target revenue. This is up dramatically from the 24% under GDUFA I. So this is a big shift in how the program is funded from what used to be 70% facility fees to now 68% on the application side of the house. Shifting to the facilities, I think Cook mentioned this earlier today, the fee will be due if the facility is referenced in an approved application as of the beginning of the fiscal year, October 1. In the past, question for you all, how is this different from before? So before it was for those who were referenced in a pending or approved application, exactly. So in the early days of GDUFA I, if you had a facility referenced in an application that wasn't yet approved, you still had to pay the facility fee even though you couldn't make any product to support that fee. That was it was seen as a big burden for small businesses especially, and so during the negotiations, this is what was worked out. So going forward, starting in this October, the only fees will be for those facilities referenced in approved applications. Something we're keeping the same is the foreign facility fee differential. That's going to be $15,000. Anybody have a guess on what the difference is from GDUFA I? Boy, I really should have brought candy here. So in GDUFA I, the agency could set that fee, at that differential, at between $15,000 and $30,000 each year, depending on the cost structure. We never actually did that. We kept it at 15,000 each year. And then in the negotiations for GDUFA II, that window is narrowed down to just 15,000. So that's another change. I've also got up here on the slide that only one fee is assessed. So anybody want to guess on how that's different from the previous year? I'm going to start offering shots to get, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so in GDUFA I, if your facility provided both API and FDF services, it had to pay both fees, both the API facility fee and the FDF facility fee. During negotiations, it was decided that was a bit much, and so facilities in that situation will only be paying the FDF fee going forward. And then finally, on the facility side, we introduced, well, negotiators introduced something called the CMO fee. I'll talk a little bit more about this. Cook referenced it as well this morning. It's the Contract Manufacturing Organization fee. This is going to be set at 1/3 of the FDF fee. So going into GDUFA II. So as I mentioned earlier, notice that the percentage of the total target revenue for facilities dropped. In GDUFA I, it was 70%. It's now down to 27%. So again, a dramatic shift from the facilities to the ANDA sponsors and holders. On the DMF side, there wasn't much of a change. The percentage went down from 6% to 5%, so a smaller portion of the total target revenue. It's going to be due technically on first reference or request for a completeness assessment under GDUFA I. The completeness assessment request didn't necessarily trigger a fee. It was more the first reference. So this is a very minor change, but otherwise that's going to be similar to going forward. And then finally, there was a slight change in the size of the program. The target revenue now is $493 million instead of $323 million. Slight change. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the ANDA holder program fee. And the basic idea here is that you, if you have approved ANDAs, will be charged a fee, a program fee, based on the number that you and your affiliates own. Number of approved ANDAs that you and your affiliates own. And there will be 3 tiers. If you have between 1 and 5, you'll pay what's called the small fee. If you have between 6 and 19 approved ANDAs, you'll be in the medium tier. And then if you have 20 or more, you're considered large. The fee is going to be different. So each tier, the large fee is considered the full fee. We haven't set that fee yet. We won't release that until August of this year. The medium fee is going to be 40% of that, and then the small fee is going to be 10% of that. So if you consider the large fee to be X, the medium is 0.4X, the small is 0.1X. So on our website, I'll get to the timeline in a second, but on our website we have a list of all the approved ANDAs and the owners of record according to our systems. We're engaged in an effort to clean up our data because it's no secret that anytime you have a large database, you're going to have some errors. And we want to make sure that when we move into calculating the fee and then applying the fee, that we have as clean a database as we can. So we've put some stuff up on our website to help you, help us, help you. And what that slide or that file shows is all the sponsor names according to our system and all the approved ANDAs that they have. And you'll notice that there are company names here that are very similar. Now you as a human reading this, you can tell, oh yeah, well this company's probably the same thing as that. If you have something that ends in an INC for incorporated and something that's an LLC, you may think it's probably the same thing. Computer systems can't do that. And so the way the statute is, the proposed statute is worded, we would have to charge each of these different entities the fee based on the number of approved ANDAs shown in the column on the right. And if you have several different versions of your name in our system, you may wind up paying several different fees. And that's not something you want. You don't want to pay multiple large fees, for example. And so we're engaged in a cleanup effort so that you can come in and say to us, hey, you've got me in here 4 different ways. I should only be in here as 1. Here's the 1. Here's the total number of approved ANDAs that I own. This gives you a chance to correct our database. It also gives you a chance to correct the number of approved ANDAs. We're finding in some cases that people have divested some of these things years ago, and that change never got reflected in our system. And so this gives them a chance to see what's out there, what we think you have, and you can correct us if we're wrong. So this cleanup effort is underway. We started back in the beginning of this year. In early January, we published a list of all those approved ANDAs according to the names that our records reflect. And those files are still up on our website. I have the link at the end of my presentation. And since then, we've been asking people if they want to make changes, if they want to inform us of something that we didn't catch, to just let us know. And so people have been doing that. We are just about to publish the second version of that list, so we've been incorporating the feedback that we received. We've been making changes, working with people to get data cleaned up, and we're just about ready to publish the second version of that list, which will show everything you've told us, plus things that have happened since then. If you've got a new approval, if you've sold something off, if you've withdrawn something, the file that we're about to publish should reflect that, at least as of March 10th, when some of our data sources had to cut off for different reasons. So once we have that out there, we're going to ask that you continue to let us know if there are any changes that need to be made so that we can incorporate those. And then for timing purposes, we need to have by June a fairly clean list of who owns how much of what so that we can set the fees. And I said earlier that we're going to set fees. We're going to release those in August. We have to know how many entities are in the large and the medium and the small tiers in order to set those fees accurately. So this is the whole effort that we've been doing all year is designed to get us to that point where we have fairly good confidence in those numbers that we're generating. So we're going to take that number internally in June, and we're going to do our math to come up with a number. We're going to send it off to the Office of Financial Management, who will take that target revenue and divide it by the number that we give them. And then they will publish an FR notice, a Federal Registered notice, in August, which will say, here's the large fee, the medium fee, the small fee. So that's the timeline, and we're sort of in the middle of it right now. We've been having some challenges getting this list out. It's pretty much ready to go out. We don't know exactly when it's going to go out, but everything's cleared the paperwork end. So it could be any time. It could be today. It could be early next week. It'll be sometime soon. So, you know, if you read the FR notice at breakfast every morning, keep your eyes peeled for this. As of last Thursday or Friday, we'd had 46 sponsors claim 7,085 of the approved ANDAs. So this is where we stand now. So it's good that we've got 7,085 ANDAs claimed, but it's not good in the sense that we still have over 2,800 whose owners have not said, yeah, that's correct. Now, we're going to move forward in June regardless. If somebody hasn't come in and claimed their ANDAs, it may be because our data are correct and they don't need to. So we're going to take what we have in June and run with it, for better or for worse. But we've got 475 sponsors who haven't come in and said, hey, we're actually the same family. We're all affiliated. Don't charge us multiple fees. So if you're representing any of those 475, please do respond to us because we need this information. So we're making progress. This is where we stand now. Every day these numbers change. So, as we're receiving feedback from industry, there's some things we're noticing that are sort of surprising. We'd expected people to send us back an Excel file. We're getting screenshots. We're getting narrative descriptions. We're getting PDF versions of this. We've got some people on our staff who are very good with Access and Excel and stuff, and they've created these nifty templates to read stuff in from an Excel sheet. Doesn't work with Adobe, doesn't work with a screenshot, so we're having to key stuff in manually. My staff are very good at doing this. They're doing it as quickly as we can, but it is differently than we expected. So we do appreciate the Excel sheets. We also appreciate getting contact information. If we have a question about what you've sent in and you don't tell us how to reach out to you, it's very difficult for us to reach out to you. So in some cases, we can figure it out because of what's on the 356H form, or we can reverse engineer the email address that you gave us to reach back out to you. But if you could say, please contact Joe Smith at this if you have any questions, that would be helpful. And we're seeing data problems. As we expected, the data that we have are not quite clean. There are some withdrawal requests that have been submitted that may have been submitted years ago and have been languishing because they don't become effective until they're published in the FR. So we have some people who have submitted requests long ago, and when they send their file in, they're saying, we've also asked for these to be withdrawn. We're not seeing that reflected here. Please confirm. And so we're working with our internal partners at OGD and the document room and elsewhere to make sure that those requests get reflected. For purposes of the draft statute, as long as you've requested a withdrawal before October 1, we're not going to count that against you. Going forward, once the legislation passes, if it's not changed, I think that deadline moves up to April 1st each year. So in any case, we're working with our internal folks to get any of these issues resolved. Don't interpret that, though, to mean that we're going to be able to resolve all of them on our own. If you have issues, make sure that the RPMs in OGD or OPQ or wherever who are working with you know that you've got this issue, because they may be able to help you in a way that we can't. So, don't assume that just telling us something is going to fix it. We can make a change for purposes of this program fee, but we can't affect a change of ownership, for example. There's a process for that. You have to go through that process. For purposes of putting you in the right tier, we can take that into account, but we can't make that change for you. So that's just you may want to reach out if you have those issues as well. So the upcoming posting that we're going to have will have 4 tabs on it. It'll be an Excel sheet. The first one is going to show approved ANDAs that somebody has claimed. This is that 7,000 and so that someone's come back and said, hey, these are mine. It's also going to approve or include a tab that says, these are approved ANDAs that no one has yet claimed. And so those are the ones that we're most concerned about. That may be because they're correct and there's no need to tell us that they're correct. That's fine. But if there are approved ANDAs that are showing up under your name that should be under someone else's, that may push you into the wrong tier and cost you money. So you don't want that to happen. So again, I urge you to take a look at this list when it comes out. In the initial January posting, we had a reference sheet that showed who owns what or who owns how many of what, and there was a way to look up stuff. So if you had a particular ANDA that you remember having sold off to someone a couple of years ago, you can type that number in and find it. If you want to look up all the approved ANDAs that our system is showing under your name, you can just look for your name and find it that way. So that table is going to be there. It'll be updated with approvals since January 9th or whenever it was, up through March 10th. So those newly approved ANDAs will be reflected there as well. And then finally, we're going to have a list of all 9,927 ANDAs that have been approved as of March 10th. Now this number, some places have a slightly higher number, but there have been some that have been consolidated, some that have been withdrawn but not accurately reflected as such. So this number is the number that we're working with, the data set that we're working with here. So I want to turn to the CMO fee. I mentioned earlier this is the Contract Manufacturing Organization fee, and this is in concept, it's a facility that manufactures for someone else. They don't own the ANDAs that they're manufacturing. They don't have affiliates who own the ANDA products that they're manufacturing. So if you fit into that category, then your fee is going to be 1/3 that of that which is assessed to an FDF facility. Now that 1/3 discount, if you will, doesn't apply to the foreign facility fee. So if you're a foreign CMO, you pay 1/3 the domestic facility plus the 15,000 foreign differential. So this is a very simple flow chart. This usually works. There may be some cases in your particular case where it doesn't work, but contact my office and we can help walk you through it. Basically, if the facility is referenced in an approved ANDA as of October 1st, or the beginning of the fiscal year if there's any budget shenanigans, the question is, does the facility or does the owner of the facility own the ANDA? If it does, then you're by definition not a CMO. So don't even try. If the owner of the facility does not own the ANDA, then you need to ask if there's an affiliate relationship. So if the owner of the facility manufacturing something is affiliated with the owner of the ANDA, again, you do not qualify as a CMO. So if you don't own it and none of your affiliate companies own it, then you're a CMO. So it sounds pretty straightforward. In practice, we're finding this can be complex given the nature of some of the relationships between and among companies. So think it through. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to my office. Going forward, what we're hoping to do is to get the rest of this cleanup done. There's a bunch of other things that we have to do before GDUFA II hits and we go live on October 1. We have the GDUFA facility self-identification period that's opening up in May. This is the same as it was under GDUFA I. It's the same thing for facility owners to come in and say, here I am, here's what I'm doing. So that's still going on. Ooh, went backwards. So in early April, sometime this week, next, so we're hoping to publish the second list. That's just going through the paperwork end of things. As I mentioned in June, we internal to my office have to calculate what we call the denominators. This is the information that we send to the Office of Financial Management to say, hey, here's how many things to expect. Do your math, publish the fees. And then that's supposed to be in the FR notice in or around the first week of April every year. I'm sorry, August. And then the reauthorizations are ongoing now. So there's actually hearings today, I believe, down on Capitol Hill about this. So these discussions are going on. Congress is going to be working on it. Hopefully they'll get something sent up to the President for signature relatively soon. And then October 1, FY28 hits and these user fees kick in. So fairly straightforward. And here's some sources where if you need more information, you can do this. The fda.gov/GDUFA is where we've published the list that I mentioned earlier. So if you want to get that list, you can go there and find it. That's where we're going to publish the one that we're hopefully getting out this week. And we went over this with similar information back in October with SBIA, and there's a webinar on there as well if you want to hear me say the same thing again. So if you do have questions, my office, you can reach out to us through email or phone, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. So that's pretty much where we stand. I'll be coming back up momentarily after Jonathan's speech to take questions. If you have questions that don't get answered then, feel free to ambush me somewhere in the hallway. So with that, I leave you to Jonathan's tender mercies. All right.